I wanted to do a talk about some of the tuning that I've done on this car. This I got this for like $100, $100 on Tamiya USA, and it came to me with a CRZ body, which I've done in Morale fashion. So the FF-03, when out of the box, is a little bit cheaper, but actually a pretty good design chassis. I will say the driveline parts, like the ball diff was kind of, and then the outdrives, they were kind of laughable. But after you get a gear diff in this thing with some metal drive and CV joints, it's actually very good. Some things that I found with this car was cooling was a necessity, especially if you want to run it quick. So there's some upgraded aluminum elements for cooling. Driving a front-wheel drive car is totally different than driving an all-wheel drive chassis. So front-wheel drive, you don't get all the traction. So the things that helped with this car's grip around corners were the gear diff to put the power down, because it was always slipping for some reason with the ball diff. There was a lot of knocking, so the CV joints. The biggest thing was the front sway bar. And if you got one in the rear, you can have that too, but the front sway bar keeps the car from pitching to either side, and it links the two inner and outer suspension components together. So when you flatten that out and going around a turn and coming out of the corner, you would actually have a lot more level traction on both tires. So I always want to tune my cars so that they're pretty good on crappy tires, but once you get good tires on them, they're like mwah, right? So the tires, I'm using foams. So I'm set up with like zero camber when you look at it straight on. How I adjust my camber is, I'll go full lock, and I'll pretend there's like a load of some sort. Pretend like, oh, full load. Now I'm losing a little bit of traction on this outer tire because the inner part of the tire is lifting a bit, and the outer tire is buttered up. So I get a lot of outer traction, but I'm losing the full surface area here. So I usually tend to give myself enough camber on a little bit of loaded chassis to flatten out that wheel. Now you do the same thing on the other side. Add a couple degrees of camber. A lot of people are pretty obsessed with how accurate it is. And I remember a long time ago I was reading this, if anyone remembers, Radio Control Car Action magazine. And there was the commentary between like the winning and the losing teams. And I remember one team was like, here's this team with like sloppy camber everything, and they placed like first or second, right? So it doesn't have to be even, but it has to be pretty close. I use my eye. I sometimes use a camber gauge, but more so I'm just looking at it by eye these days, because who's the time to just set up a full alignment suite on your table, pretend it's like coming in hot, right? And then you're like, whoa, brake, and then like load up the front, and then throw it to the outside. That's like initial incoming corner, right? And then you got your mid, it's gonna kind of press to the back a little bit, and then you got your full on out. By the time you even out your wheels, there's gonna be some load on that inner, and then to the back completely. And that's where you lose all the traction on the front, because when you've shifted all the weight to the back while you're accelerating, and that's always the curse of the front wheel drive. Under acceleration, you're losing traction. So traction, camber for cornering, but I've also found, and if you've stuck with me this far, this was an interesting thing that I learned about, was the relationship between the width of the front and rear. On a front-wheel drive car, since a lot of the load goes to the front, and this works with rear all-wheel drive cars too, if you have a wider track width, you have more stability, and you can allow the suspension to kind of settle more across a wider area. So if you increase your track width, with 6-7 millimeters, this car is extraordinary in the sense that I'm using something like 10 millimeter plus 10 plus 1 or 2 mils, so 12 mil offsets to go real wide. And that idea came from watching like real cars, like front wheel drive Civics for drag racing. They just got crazy front wide track on the front, and it's like bulging out of the fenders. I kind of want to build something like that. That'd be kind of cool, like on an EK or EG chassis, right? But yeah, like wide track width, and these tires are 30 mil rather than your standard 26 or even your 24. I've got an extra chunk of meat that I can utilize, which makes it kind of not a standard front wheel drive car, but this is this is the only way I know how to tune it. Right? I bet I could do something with 24 mils, but it's all whatever you have, right? I got these and I love them. So anyway, so those are some of the things that I've come across. I'm running an 80 amp Trackstar turbo ESC with a 17.5 V1 hobby wing that I got used, and it runs great. It's like the turbo when it kicks in, it's like B-Tech, yo. I gotta get a Honda body for this. Okay, anyway, talk to you guys later.